Established Titles is a company whose goal is to plant trees in exchange for you buying a 1-by-1 plot of land from their estate. With that donation, they bestow unto you the title of Lord, Lady, or Laird. Many YouTubers, especially this month, have been promoting Established Title as their video sponsor. Initially, when the rumours surrounding this company had come to light, I decided to act first and remove my video. I wanted to research that I was definitely making the right decision by distancing myself away from this company, as the last thing it is that I would want to do is to continue to promote this company, all while finding all of the relevant information to find out that they are indeed a scam. So I took down my video, released a statement, and emailed all the relevant people and waited for further information. We initially emailed our third-party talent scout, if you will, who basically stated that they stood by Established Titles as they rigorously vet every single company it is that they choose to work with. And upon asking for a statement, Established Titles provided us with this document. And in this document, they refer to claims made against them as bogus. At the bottom of the email, they stated that they were available to talk to anybody at any time, so we took them up on that offer. And we organised an interview between myself and the CEO of Established Titles, Katerina Yip, where I could ask them all of the important questions and hear exactly what it is that they have to say. Because, see, Established Titles is a company that has come under fire heavily within the past 3 days. Whilst a few videos over the years have been made about Established Titles stating that your lord or ladyship isn't legal, nobody seemed to have come to the conclusion that Established Titles was a scam. Misleading? Possibly, but a scam? Well, that was nobody until Scott Schaefer. On the 24th of November 2022, Scott Schaefer made a video called Established Title Scam, YouTube's Biggest Con, which was an inflammatory video designed to make all content creators guilty by association. Now, I rebuke the notion that content creators are above reproach and deserve condemnation for an oversight, especially if there was no way to know what it was that you were promoting was bad. So I went into my research with 2 questions. Number 1, is Established Titles a scam? And number 2, if Established Titles is a scam, is there any way that us content creators would have known? Is this a case of misleading advertisement practices? Or is this a case of a misunderstanding and communicational error? So join me as we debunk the Established Titles scam. But first, a word from today's sponsor, and it's just makeup, okay, I promise, so you can chill. Today's video is proudly sponsored by Juvia's Place. Now, you guys have known that I have been a huge supporter of Juvia's Place, like, forever. In fact, this drawer over here at the back of me is full of Juvia's products, to the point that it's actually high-key embarrassing how many products of Juvia's Place it is that I have known. However, contrary to popular belief, I actually don't receive every single PR it is that Juvia's Place put out. So when Juvia's Place sent me over the coffee shop collection, I was so excited to try this out. Now, usually I don't get excited by nude and neutral palettes, but there's just something about the colors in this one that really honestly get me going. It's got so many dark shades and so much room for smoky eye realness whilst having gorgeous shimmers that honestly pop on the eyes. Inside the coffee shop collection, they also have these gorgeous lip glosses. Now, what I will say is these lip glosses are a little bit different to the usual Juvia's Place lip glosses because what do you call it, like doe foot? I forgot what you call it. But the doe foot on there is actually really thin and hard, but also it smells like chocolate coffee. It is absolutely stunning. Now, if you guys decide to go over to the Juvia's Place website right now, they are currently still doing their Black Friday sale with everything up to 50% off site-wide, and they are just about to start doing their Cyber Week sale. So if you would like to go and get the coffee shop collection, it is currently discounted for $170, or you can go ahead and pick up the palette, this beautiful thing right here, here for $26 currently. So go ahead and you can also use my code PETTY, that's PETTY, to use as a discount on your order. So don't forget to go over to juviasplace.com and go and pick up some amazing deals this Black Friday / Cyber Week, but also make sure that you go and get your hands on the coffee collection, because the coffee collection is so bomb, smells so beautiful, and possibly one of the more gorgeous neutral collections to come out this year. Also, a massive thank you to Juvia's Place for sponsoring today's video, and without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So I think that the only way for us to be able to talk about what went so dreadfully wrong is to go point by point and piece by piece. By taking a look at Scott Schaefer's video, as well as compiling evidence sourced and found, as well as the brief it is that us content creators have been given by established titles, versus the words of the CEO of established titles and what it is that they've had to say for themselves. So this section of the video will essentially be a medley of the three. As I stated previously, I did have a discussion with the CEO, Katarina Yip, of established titles, and I will leave the link to that full interview in the description box down below. So let's start here.
Unfortunately, everything said there, from the buying of land to being given a lord title and even the planting of trees, is a complete lie. After researching this company, I uncovered a web of shell companies devised to hide who actually operates this scam, and what I will show you in this video will truly shock you.
So the first thing it is that Scott states is that buying a land, as well as receiving the title of Lord or Lady, as well as trees being planted, are all a complete lie. He also states that established titles is run under a massive web of companies devised to hide who runs the scam. And whilst I will admit that it is a confusing web of companies, asking questions will give you all of the answers it is that you need, rather than assuming. As a footnote, according to the CEO of Established Titles, Scott never reached out to Established Titles or any of the other partnering companies such as Fell Ventures, etc., prior to making his video. So the aforementioned research it was that content creators were supposed to do wasn't even conducted by Scott Schaefer himself. Just wild assumptions without any clarification. So let's start there.
The first issue is the most fundamental, and that is the fact that when you buy one of their 1 square foot plots of land in Scotland, you aren't actually buying any land at all. What they are essentially selling you is a gag gift known as a souvenir plot. Under the Scotland Law and Registration Act of 2012, it's not allowed for these small plots of land to be legally sold.
The buying of land with established titles isn't the buying of land in the conventional sense. In order to buy land, as you can imagine, it takes more steps than just a $50 transaction on a website. It has always been the case that what you are purchasing is a novelty souvenir plot of land. In the brief given to creators, we are directed to say in an opening statement that it is a fun and novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland, as well as support global reforestation efforts. In fact, if you were to go to their first ever blog post on their blog, they state, "This is a purchase for a personal dedication for a souvenir plot of land. In addition to purchasing a fun novelty product for friends and family, you are also contributing to our conservation efforts." What you are essentially purchasing is a pledge between you and established titles that they will preserve that land and keep it in its natural state forever. The title, in essence, is a tongue-in-cheek gesture based, fundamental word here, on the Scottish tradition of land being attributed to a title.
This allegation of us being a scam was popularized by this guy. I think there are 4 main criticisms that he uses in the video. So the first of them is that these titles are not official titles. I think we are very clear on the website. We've always been very clear on the website that this is a novelty item. And I think that the language really hasn't changed since day one. And I was very, very clear about that. So what our customers do have is they have a personal right against us. We're contractually obliged to keep that land in its natural state forever. And that is being done under the name of the customer or a person that the customer wishes to dedicate that plot to. So in effect, we've dedicated that land out. We can't use the land for anything except for preserving it. And if we were to act immorally or go back on our contractual obligations, the customers would be able to take a claim against us. Let's say we sold the plot. They could literally sue us.
Established titles are the ones that are giving you this title. Nobody else. Nor have they ever claimed that anybody else will. Because if they did that, it wouldn't just be a scam, it would be illegal. So of course, if you were to go over to the Scottish Land Registry and try and sell on your plot or do anything with it, they would not consider it at all because you aren't the legal owner of the land. You are the owner of an acknowledgement that that land was conserved in your honor. Nothing more and nothing less. Even in the proclamation it is that you receive from Established Titles, it states, Established Titles agrees to dedicate the plot in the name of the lady/lord on the estate. Furthermore, in the proclamation it states that the estate that the plot forms a part of has been identified and set aside in relation to the scheme of a souvenir plot. They state that Established Titles bequeath a dedication in favour of the lady/lord, but without the rights, which remains with the registrant of the estate and may be identified with the larger area. It ends with the sentence, more specifically, not in such a way that it could be registered or owned in a separate title or separate ownership. Again, this is just a dedication of land to the name that they are referring to you as, the lord or lady. This language and verbiage is there every step of the way throughout your purchase. The acknowledgement of your rights and ownership, or lack thereof.
Another big selling point they have is that if you buy a piece of land in Scotland, the custom is that you now become a lord or lady and can add that official title to your name. Sadly, this couldn't be any farther from the truth. Now, this old wives' tale has been around for a long time, and the Court of the Lord Lion, which is the highest court in Scotland in regard to giving out titles, said this to clear up the situation. Ownership of a souvenir plot of land does not bring with it the right to any description such as laird, lord, or lady. The words lord and lady appear to those on whom a peerage has been confirmed and do not relate to the ownership of land. Ownership of a souvenir plot of land is not sufficient to bring a person otherwise ineligible within the jurisdiction of the Lord Lion for seeking a coat of arms. So right there from the highest court in Scotland, they said flat out that ownership of land does not bestow a title of lord or lady to you.
As acknowledged previously, the title of lord or lady has been bestowed upon you by Established Titles and no other governing body. In the proclamation it is that you receive, they acknowledge that by way of dedication to the plot of land, Established Titles then states that you can be known in the style and title of lady/lord. This isn't legally binding. There are only 3 ways that you can become a lord or lady in Scotland, and that is either to be married to somebody who has lord or lady status, to purchase a land or an estate that has the lady or lord status attached to it, which are very few and far between now, or to be given the title of lord or lady by the House of Lords directly. There have never ever been any claims by Established Titles that your lord or ladyship is legally binding. In the brief that's given to content creators, we are advised to say, you could officially include the title of lord or lady on your credit card, plane tickets, /dating profiles, etc. It makes a great last-minute gift. Now, it's important to note that the word officially doesn't mean legally. And I do agree that the language of officially does give it that extra little bit of importance where there isn't really any. So I do believe that that is something that should be changed. However, later on in the document, it does state the phrase, you can legally change your name on passports and driver's license, is in the section of common errors to avoid. They state that lord or lady is a prefix such as Mr. or Mrs. So you can only add it to official documents which allow for that. Both passports in the United States driver's license do not allow these prefixes.
So in most common law jurisdictions, you can title yourself however you want to title yourself, as long as you're not, as long as you're doing it in good faith and you're not using it to try to get a bank loan or try to get someone to invest like way more than they would have, trying to make yourself seem trustworthy and make someone else basically give you funds for that by using using the Lord or Lady title. But if you're doing it in good faith, if you're putting it on like a plane ticket or a credit card, you can technically call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. Very specifically, you can title yourself however you want to title yourself. I've seen that some people, although I think this is extremely rare, go as far as like changing their name, which you can do because you can change your name to whatever you want to have like Lord or Lady at the beginning of it. But that's kind of the background behind how that works. Now, why do we specifically say no passports or some other things? Because the reality is an American passport, for example, does not have that in the options to choose. So there are forms where you can have, if you buy airline tickets with some companies, they'll let you choose like Mr., Mrs., Dr., Lord, Lady. And then there are some other documentation, like passports, for example, especially in the US, where because that option just isn't there, we don't want to confuse people and get them to think that they could get it on their passport. No one can have it on their, actually, I don't know if it's true that no one can have it on their passport, but at least it's not like in the drop down little box. So that's how the calling yourself a Lord or a Lady works. Like we said, it's for a bit of fun, and I think it's applicable in situations where that makes sense.
The fact of the matter is that you can change your name and title legally here in the UK, at least, to whatever you want. I myself personally have had my name legally changed in the United Kingdom deed poll, and my son has the title of Master rather than Mr. until he becomes 18 years old, where it changes, as is the case with British custom. So I can kind of understand the changing of your title being attributed to the ownership with established titles, but under only a small, tiny little bit of scrutiny, it's kind of clear to see that there is nothing legally binding about your Lord or Lady status.
Now, the final issue I want to bring up is the fact that they say that they plant trees with every purchase, and that by buying one of their plots of land, you are saving the woodlands by buying it and preventing its use for other means. Now, Established Titles does not plant any trees, despite what their YouTube sponsors tell you. The only thing Established Titles does is donate money to an actual tree planting company called One Tree Planted. On top of that, they have never provided any evidence that they are actually donating money to back up their claims. So basically, you have to take the company's word that they are really donating money to plant trees. On top of that, if you really wanted to plant trees, you could save yourself some money by not buying a scam plot of land and just give your money directly to One Tree Planted.
Okay, so this was the part that initially made me want to cut ties. I was absolutely horrified when Scott stated that there was no proof of payment to either charities to plant trees globally. Now, upon further research, Established Titles has always either had the amount of money or the amount of trees planted stated on their website. And when you go to Trees for the Future and click on Established Titles, you can even see there on their website that they have how many trees planted in honor of Established Titles. Now, Scott's argument in the video is that they'd never posted proof and that they needed proof that they were even donating to these charities. And I thought that this was somewhat of a ridiculous statement, only because for a conservation project, I've never heard of people like demanding proof from those kind of companies, especially if they work in collaboration with other charities. It's kind of in their best interest to tell the truth. So I sent an email to Trees for the Future, and I sent an email to One Tree Planted, pending response, to see if they could provide proof or at least confirm on their end that they had received money from Established Titles for trees planted. So I asked for proof, and I got proof. Here is the project that Trees for the Future are working on with established titles. See, outside of all of this social media hoo-ha, established titles are actually working with Trees for the Future on a specific project based in Glasgow. And there is a detailed list of all of the trees that will be planted in their name in Glasgow, Scotland. So whilst they are a global charity, their work with established titles for this particular project is based in Scotland. However, according to the CEO of established titles, they plan to plant trees all over the world. And here is also an invoice that was sent from established titles as part of an ongoing project between the two. Anyway, as I said, at this point I haven't received a response from One Tree Planted, but if I do, I will most certainly share it. So, where is the scam? What is the lie? Or is it just simply a communicational error?
And basically it says that this lady, Katarina Yip, created established titles after visiting the Scotland countryside. She fell in love. She wanted to start her company. Great. That's all fantastic. So we can actually look this lady up. I found her on LinkedIn. This is her page right here. And if you go to her LinkedIn page, you can see that she's based out of Hong Kong, which is very interesting. Not in Scotland or anywhere near it. But you can see that she's actually involved. She's currently employed by 3 different companies. The first is called Failed Ventures, where she is the co-founder and president. And she's also a board member of Galton Voicier, I think that's how you say it, and a board member of Trifecta Retail Ventures. And you can see these people at the top. These 2 people you need to be aware of. They're at all these companies. There's William Wolfram, who's the CEO co-founder, and Katarina Yip, who is the president co-founder. So keep in mind, those are the 2 people. So from there, from Failed Ventures, they're the ones that own established. Let's go to the next company. Now, the next company is Galton Voicier. This is their LinkedIn page. It says they are a manufacturing company located in Hong Kong. This is their actual website right here. If you go down to their all-star team page and look at their people at the board, you can see William Wolfram and Katarina Yip again at this company as well. What's really interesting is if you look at the third company, which is Trifecta Retail Ventures, they are based out of they have an office in Hong Kong, but they're based out of primarily southern Finland. So they're from Finland, and this company is actually owned by the Wolfram guy that we saw on the other page. So all 3 of these companies were founded by William Wolfram, and William Wolfram is a Finnish man who I believe he has a long history of creating some of these, I would say, shady companies. He dropped out of school and at 16 created the website DealDash. So this was his first company that actually made him a ton of money, and then he has since created these other companies in Hong Kong that now produce these other shady type companies online.
Okay, so this is where I kind of understand Scott's confusion, because a web of companies is ridiculously complicated to understand. Unless, again, you ask. And I did, so this is what I found out. So Kat Yip is the founder of Established Titles, and that is her company. In May 2017, she became the executive assistant to the CEO and chairman at Galton Voicier. And the CEO and chairman is the aforementioned William Wolfman. This company, Galton Voicier, funded the project of Established Titles in 2020. Now, it states that William Wolfman started Failed Ventures in 2008, but the fact is that Failed Ventures actually started several years later. That's because William wanted to put the start date for Failed Ventures as the same time as DealDash so that he could have DealDash underneath Failed Ventures. I hope you're following. So that's why, although the company started in 2008, Katarina didn't become a co-founder, if you will, until May 2017. I hope you're following. Failed Ventures is essentially a business where they work on the premise of failing together. They build e-commerce businesses, and some make it and some don't. With over 70 failed ventures, you get it, and only 6 ventures that are actually thriving businesses. They work with the ethos that you have to fail multiple times in business in order to have a successful business. And then Their business is building businesses. So whilst Kat was an executive assistant in Galton Voice, she was also helping out at the very humble beginnings of Fail Ventures. So the title of co-founder and president wasn't given to her immediately. She kind of had to work her way up. But as you can see at the time, she was working her way up in Galton Voice. At the time that Kat was working for Fail Ventures, they only had one successful venture, which was DealDash. And it was in fact Kat's work at established titles that gained her the higher position at Failed Ventures. Failed Ventures has a system of employing other CEOs from other successful businesses to work for their company and to help aid in building other companies with their unique expertise. Kat stated to me that Failed Ventures is actually her day-to-day job and that she is now merely a board member of Galton Voice and a board member of Trifecta, which is essentially a holdings company. Hopefully all of that made sense, but I have to say, going through somebody else's employment history definitely did bring back memories of being a store manager, so thanks for that, Scott.
Now, DealDash, if you're not familiar with this, I won't go too detailed into it. DealDash is basically like an eBay ripoff type site, but what they have is massively discounted prices on their products. Some products, you can get like a barbecue that's normally like $200, and it's currently going for $1, right? So this company is incredibly shady, and they make a ton of money by, convincing by these people who don't read the fine print, and they have to end up spending a bunch of money. So what ended up happening was there was actually a lawsuit against DealDash because some of these customers, they were having very deceptive marketing. We're saying like this lady, they have a bunch of ads where this lady is like, oh, I won this thing for $2. But what they don't tell you is she actually spent like $100 in bids and actually paid more than the manufacturer retail price of the product because she had to bid so much. So this website has been sued before. There's a bunch of scammy stuff going on here.
Now, Scott brings up DealDash, a penny auction that was involved in a lawsuit as some people saw it as a scam. So for the record, DealDash is still in operation and the lawsuit was dismissed. Here are some documents regarding the dismissal. Now, whilst DealDash may be seen to many as unethical, it's not really something that I care to discuss, as this particular business wasn't anything that any content creators were promoting. If it was deemed as a scam and wasn't dismissed and lost the case, then I would legitimately see some reason for some outrage. However, that wasn't the case, so for me, it truly adds nothing. Okay, so let's talk about the misunderstandings and misconceptions before we wrap this little bitch up in a bow.
Finally, the land that they own is already part of a protected land plot away from any major cities, so by giving them money, you are not actually helping the environment in any way, you are just lining the pockets of these scammers.
This plot of land is not a protected plot of land in the way that Scott puts it. Scotland's freedom to roam law is basically the act that allows you to access any open land in Scotland as long as you don't disturb anything. So basically, if I was in a field and I wanted to go 3 fields over, I could go across all 3 fields as long as I didn't disrupt or destroy anything on my way there. It's not the kind of land where somebody could call the police for trespassing and me get arrested for it. Some established titles plots are close to roads, and some established plots are already forested and they've vowed to keep that space forested. The United Kingdom is absolutely nothing like the US. Everything is very close together and not spaced out. So much of our land here in the UK is being taken up by building sites and new home developments. Even for me, literally down the road from where I live, there are 2 massive fields that have been developed into new houses. This is a real problem that the United Kingdom is facing.
Spencer Cornelia, former Grift Slayer, has been responding to people leaving comments on his videos the past few days about the company being a scam, and Spencer's response is basically he thinks it's okay if it's a scam because it's harmless and they're planting trees with your money. So according to Spencer's logic, if I were to steal something from his house, pawn it off, and then use some of the money to plant some trees, he would be okay with it because ultimately I did something good.
Okay, so Spencer did not say or even allude to saying anything even close to what Scott is stating. This is a completely disingenuous, bad faith argument. And how anyone listened to that and thought to themselves,
yep, that's a fair assumption,
is an absolute crazy person.
Now, both of these companies are based out of Hong Kong, so China basically, and I think it's very interesting that these companies are based out of a country that has very lax business laws. You can get away with a lot more somewhat shady type business practices in Hong Kong and China as opposed to most Western countries. And now he has moved pretty much all of his businesses over to Hong Kong, which is really interesting because he is from Finland. So why would he do that? Now, like I said, my opinion is because Hong Kong and Chinese laws are a lot more lax as opposed to the laws in, Finland or most Western countries. So I just think that's incredibly shady.
So the idea is that China has very lax business laws. That's why they chose to operate in Hong Kong, China.
The third criticism is that because I'm based in Hong Kong, it's somehow shady. So, he equates Hong Kong and China having a very similar, in his head, like business regulation or legal regulation. If he knew or anyone knew anything about global politics, they would know that that's not the case. Hong Kong law is based on English law because it was a British colony. And that's why it's an international finance center. It's completely different. And to that, I don't really know what more I can say. Like I grew up here. I look like this. I live here.
Yeah.
I am American. I've lived in France and I lived in the UK and then family moved here and I moved back because my family were here. So, that's all I can say about that, really.
Anyone who knows even a little bit about history will know that Hong Kong was actually a British colony up until 1997. So many of the laws in that specific part of China aren't that unsimilar from English laws or Western laws. So there's nothing really to suggest that they are getting away with shoddy business practices because they are operating out of Hong Kong/China. And this to me just seems to be a prejudiced assumption based on the ethnicity of the owner and nothing more. And I said what I said. Now, I think initially what has caused the most confusion surrounding everything to do with established titles is who exactly is planting the trees? And that comes down to one thing and one thing only, the brief. The brief it is that all of us content creators were given. Because the language in that brief, when you convert it from first person to third person, changes significantly and gives a level of ownership that isn't really there. So as you can see in the brief, in section 4, it says, we plant a tree with every order and work with global charities, One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, to support global reforestation efforts. Now, when reading this, as a creator, we will change it to, they plant a tree with every order and work with global charities, One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, to support global reforestation efforts. Or another option is that we'll say established titles plants a tree with every order and work with global charities, One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, to support global reforestation efforts. When changing that language from first person to third person, it completely changes the dynamic of what's being said, leading people to believe that they were planting trees in Scotland themselves. A simple first person to third person conversion was all that was needed to show that this was definitely, to me at least, a communicational error. So here is what happened when I posed that question to the CEO. I think I've kind of pinpointed what the problem is. Honestly, I think I'm a genius, right? So what I found is seems to be a situation with the brief. So there is a situation between what it is that we as content creators are getting as a brief to be able to describe what the company's about versus how it translates when we actually talk about it. So when it comes to the trees and who plants them and all that kind of stuff, it says in the brief, and quote, we plant a tree with every order and work with global charities, One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, to support global reforestation efforts. So at the beginning of that, it says we plant a tree with every order. Because that sentence is structured in that way, when a YouTuber says that sentence, they will then change the words to they plant a tree with every order and work with global charities. Do you understand what I mean? So when that gets translated from the creator's standpoint, it then reads to the audience as misleading, when I don't actually think the intent is misleading at all. It's the way that, and it's like literally, I know it sounds stupid, it's like literally lost in translation by that tiny little thing where when you read it one way and when the creator says it in a different way, it translates completely differently.
You know what? That's a really great point that I don't think that, obviously when we're writing this, we're like, well, you know, like this is what we mean. That's a really good point. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I think we'll have to like rephrase that or look at what we're saying and try to make it clearer. I think we're quite clear, at least on the website, on our homepage, how we do things. So that's a really good point. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
So at the beginning of today's video, I posed 2 questions. Question 1 is established titles a scam? And question 2, if they are a scam, is there any way that us as creators would have been able to know? And the answer is overwhelming, to me at least, that no, they are not a scam. Granted, you can choose not to pledge to conserve a piece of land and donate to a tree planting charity directly, and it will most definitely cost you a lot less money. But the gift itself is novel and never pretended to be anything other than that. It's the equivalent to me of buying a star. And I mean, astronauts in NASA are not flying up into the sky and saying that we just passed Sarah Lewisham from Bridgend on the left. And as for there being a way for creators to be able to identify this as a scam, I'm gonna say no. Upon my own further research, I don't believe there's anything to suggest that they are. Sure, you can say that the proclamation is not even worth the paper that it's printed on, but that's entirely up to the consumer's discretion. Many people have seen established titles changing the wording or the verbiage on their website to make things more clear and concise as a gotcha moment. And I can't understand for the life of me why changing something that you see as a problem and that others see as a problem to make them more clear and concise is seen as a shady business practice. It's very clear, abundantly clear, that there are a lot of things that need to be changed. From the brief that creators are given to the vetting of the language that is being used in adverts, as well as more emphasis on the words novel and souvenir. But one thing's for sure, the misunderstandings isn't a clause hidden deep in the fine print. It's always been there to see. And the questions aren't unable to be answered. It's just that nobody asked. And for me, I feel comfortable to work with established titles again in the future, if they want me. And I implore any person who has watched Scott's video to go forth and watch mine and then make their own decision too. And whilst it is important to act fast to remove scams or promotions of scams from your channel, I think it's fair to say that the rigorous detective work it is that I've done in today's video isn't something that should be expected of content creators. We are creatives who produce content, not products. And should a real scam company come up, I hope that instead of sending a mob, we apply grace. Because Lord or Lady knows that a little kindness goes a long way. Okay, so that video was a bit weird, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Like I said previously, the full interview between myself and Kate Yip, the CEO of Established Titles, will be linked in the description box down below, so definitely go ahead and check that out. I do want to say a massive thank you to Kat for even just taking the time to talk to me in this interview. I really appreciate it. I know it must have been really stressful for them because it's been crazy on social media, and I guess that's what happens when virality happens online. I just want to say a massive thank you to my patrons, my members, as well as my Twitch family. You guys are always holding me down, and I appreciate every single last one of you. As well as a massive thank you to Juvia's Place for sponsoring today's video. Anyway, that's it. I am bloody knackered, so I'm going to go to bed. I hope you guys have an amazing day or evening, whatever the hell it is you're doing. Until next time, you beautiful, amazing, bad ass bitches. It's been Paige. Bye.